Good evening, America. It is 7 p.m. Tuesday, August 4th, and this is Queer News Tonight, the world's first live LGBTQ daily evening news. It is time to queer up the news.
Watch as we bring you these stories and other stories from the LGBTQ headlines. James Corden tapped to replace Ellen DeGeneres, and Savannah approves broad protections for LGBTQ people.
Meth crisis among gay men is the community's dirty secret. And Trump organization under investigation for insurance and bank fraud.
And on Wednesday at 8 p.m., It's Happening Out will tackle the issue of identity shaming in the LGBTQ community and what we can do to combat it. And then on Thursday at 8 p.m., Gay Town Hall, a diverse group from around the LGBTQ community weighs in on Biden's choices for vice president and who they would choose. So good evening again, America. It is 7 p.m. Tuesday, August 4th, 2020. It is time to queer up the news. We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight. Live daily queer evening news show.
Tonight's news about the gay community and the news from an LGBTQ perspective. Are our gay stories important to you? In headlines, politics, entertainment, gay culture, travel, religion, and more. Reported by respected anchors.
Out of the closet and into the headlines on Q News Tonight. Thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. We are live and unedited. This is an unedited show, so anything can happen. This evening, we bring you the news of and a perspective from the LGBTQ community. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and this is my co-anchor, Aaron Dar, and co-anchor, Misty Eyes. Let's queer up the news. First, we have a special guest tonight, Terry B. America celebrates our healthcare workers, but Q News Tonight wonders if we do as good a job of supporting healthcare professionals as we should. Tonight we are going to introduce you to an RN whistleblower that will likely change what you think is going on in our hospitals and with our healthcare workers, and then hospital patients. This exclusive interview is with Terry B. We obviously are changing the name. RN in the Behavioral Health Unit at Broward Health Imperial Point Hospital. This is one of South Florida's largest hospital systems and our flagship in the gayest place on planet Earth. Good evening, Terry.
Good evening.
Well, you have been an RN since 2013 and now work in a special 48-bed unit at Broward Health Imperial Point Hospital, one of South Florida's largest medical providers. America, we are going to have an extensive interview with Terry this Thursday at 7 p.m. on Queer News Tonight and at 8 p.m. on Gay Town Hall. But tonight, we thought we would introduce you to what we're going to do on Thursday night by discussing some of what is happening in our hospitals. Terry, over 4th of July holiday, you had a COVID-19 outbreak that closed your unit with 11 members, including 2 doctors positive with coronavirus. A mental health tech, Frank DePalma, was placed on a ventilator, and I read he died July 29th. Tell us about this incident, briefly about what happened.
That sadly is true. He was a beloved staff member, and we lost him last week. It was devastating for the unit, as you can imagine. The unit was infected. It was closed down. 11 staff members, in addition to 2 doctors. I can't tell you how many patients also contracted the virus, and they had to close and clean the unit for that purpose.
America, Thursday night, we're going to tell you the details of what happened here and what the results are that are really going to astound you. Terry, I understand that N95 masks have not been regularly distributed to the healthcare staff at Broward Health. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Not only have they not been regularly distributed, they have not been distributed to our floor. They're housed in our electronical medication dispensing system, but we're not allowed to access them.
From the beginning of the pandemic, we're showing a picture of that machine that distributes. From the beginning of the pandemic, I understand that you and healthcare workers were never tested for COVID-19. And in fact, until this event on July 4th's outbreak, you were not tested at all. Is that correct?
That is correct. That troubled the staff greatly. There were calls that we thought we should be tested. It was only the outbreak that had us be tested. And we've been calling for testing repeatedly for the safety of ourselves and our patients.
America, Thursday night, we're going to discuss this issue very specifically. What Terry B. has just told us, in the midst of this major outbreak, staff members at Broward Health Imperial Point Hospital were not tested in February, March, April, May, or June for 5 months at all. I understand that Broward Health has critical shortages. I'm reading this reporting from a variety of people, health professionals at Broward Health facilities, including Imperial Point, has critical shortages of PPE. We're reading about it also nationally, but this includes even basic items like gloves and wipes. Tell us about what is happening there in terms of PPE needs.
Very short supply, very much rationed. Our administration staff does the best they can on the unit to ensure that we have them, but often we start a shift and we have to wait to get even basic wipes to wipe down computers, work surface areas. We are now provided with the very flimsy paper masks, surgical masks. Those are available pre-shift, but it's scary. It's very scary to go in and not be able to protect yourself and to be able to protect your patients.
It is being reported to Queer News tonight that there is no hazard pay at Broward Health and at Imperial Point Hospital. If you have an outbreak like you had in your unit for July 4th, you must take personal leave. You quarantine for 14 days. Is that correct? You must quarantine?
You must quarantine for the specific time period, which keeps changing. If you actually contract COVID-19, you get workman's compensation. When the unit closed, we paid for our wages by ourselves by using our PL time.
Yeah, and I want to ask this question. So to be compensated, because there's no hazard pay at Broward Health Imperial Point Hospital, when you had this major outbreak, July 4th weekend, for you to, you must take personal leave to continue to have economic support while you're waiting because there's no hazard pay. Is that correct?
That is correct. The CEO has been asked directly this week why Broward Health does not give us hazard pay. And his answer to one of my colleagues was, they allow us to borrow to have negative PL, which we have to pay back instead of giving us hazard pay.
Wow. Terry, this seems to, I think where we're going to lead, it seems to contradict all that we hear, and we've reported here at Queer News tonight, the celebration of our healthcare workers when you are not supported in supplies, information, pay, and basic PPE. Are you afraid of what you're watching is going on in our medical healthcare system, and specifically at Broward Health Imperial Point Hospital?
I find it very troubling. On our unit, we're not able to keep ourselves and our patients safe. We're not given PPE, and we're all questioning why we don't get hazard pay. It's, from what I understand, a federal program. Why hasn't it trickled down to the workers who are ultimately the ones who put themselves on the line every single day?
Well, America, LGBT America, Terry B is a member of our community. We have so much to explore and tell you. We are going to tell you this story using our major medical system here in South Florida and the gayest place on planet Earth. We call this special extended segment, COVID-19 Crisis. What are healthcare professionals facing in our hospitals? A whistleblower on masks, PPE, COVID-19 infections, and hospital deaths, hazard pay, and what is happening to healthcare workers and their patients. It's going to be this Thursday, August 6th at 7 p.m. on Queer News Tonight and at 8 p.m. on Gay Town Hall. This is an exclusive interview with Terry B., RN Behavioral Health Unit at Broward Health Imperial Point Hospital. You won't want to miss what you're going to hear. Thank you, Terry, and I look forward to our interview.
Thank you.
Tonight we begin with our queer headlines. The LGBTQ community in America is diverse. The LGBTQ community around the world is vast, and we bring you the bullet points of queer news for today, Tuesday, August 4th, 2020. We begin by queering up health in reporting that the meth crisis among gay men is the community's dirty secret. Watch this.
Methamphetamine.
This is what I do to motivate myself a little bit.
A drug that was also known for a while as redneck cocaine.
It's a little like,
It's believed to be only used by hicks in rural areas. They use it, but so do gay men in urban centers.
a lot of people use it for sex.
As a way of sort of enhancing their lives, enhancing their partying.
But no, I do it and I channel my inner passions. So here we go. Let's turn up.
Over 11 million Americans have tried meth at least once.
You ready, Wolves?
The gay community is no stranger to sickness. With HIV dominating the landscape of our lives for much of the past 40 years, a suspicion, fear, and outright distrust of one another spread just as quickly as the virus itself. However, something that has gone unappreciated or underappreciated recently is the sickness of addiction that has gripped the community. And recently, Jim Mangia, who runs a network of community health centers in Los Angeles, put a spotlight on what he calls the meth disaster. According to his account of the situation of meth addiction is much like the AIDS epidemic of the 1980s, where resources are paltry and the government doesn't offer much needed support for a problem that is growing right under our noses. Personally, I can admit that I hadn't even given this much thought until I read about it in his article, an excellent piece in the New York Times published earlier this week.
Yeah, we can say this is a dirty little secret to the gay community, but I can tell you as someone who's born and raised Baptist in the Midwest and a state like Ohio, it's not just LGBT people that are susceptible to be becoming addicted on methamphetamine. It's extremely popular all across the Midwest and here in the South amongst heterosexuals who are teens. I myself have been sober for over 3 years. On my lowest point, I was 98 pounds. I was addicted to crystal meth for 7 years, and I'm not as open about that as I probably should be. But 3 years isn't a long time for sobriety for me and where I would like to be one day. But it's a struggle every day, and it's a lot more common than you think. And I think that America and the world really need to start taking addiction and making it a national conversation.
Aaron, thank you for being so brave. I've never struggled with methamphetamine addiction, but many of my clients have, and some of them are functioning and some of them are not functioning, and it's very, very sad.
I have many friends in the LGBTQ community that regularly participate in meth. But interesting to me, in Q News Tonight in 2020, this is the first time we've done a story on meth and meth addiction. And the article in the New York Times points out that it is really one of the #1 impacts in our community, addiction from meth, which is one of the reasons I appreciate Aaron's honesty.
Thank you. Well, next we're going to queer up business. Trump Organization is under investigation for insurance and bank fraud filing. Watch this.
Just heard about this is just a continuation of the witch hunt. It's Democrat stuff. They failed with Mueller. They failed with everything. They failed with Congress. They failed at every stage of the game. This has been going on for 3.5, 4 years. Even before I got in, this was starting.
Attorneys for Manhattan District Attorney Cy Vance argued Monday that President Donald Trump should be forced to comply with a subpoena for his tax documents and suggested that his company was under investigation for alleged insurance and bank fraud. The disclosure in a federal court filing adds a new dimension to the battle over the president's financial records. Trump's lawyers filed an amended lawsuit last week saying Vance's subpoena for tax documents from the president's tax preparer was overbroad and was brought in bad faith. The new suit followed a decision by the Supreme Court last month that said a president is not immune from a grand jury subpoena while in office.
I 100% agree. The president is not immune.
It's interesting. It's another strategy that Trump has had for the last 30 years. Throw money at legal mumbo-jumbo, confuse the entire situation, and ultimately you're going to get out of it, which is exactly what he's trying to do here.
Listen, if I was Donald Trump, I wouldn't be so worried about whether or not he is or is not going to be reelected. I'd be worrying about the Attorney General of New York State.
Next week, we're up entertainment. India Moore is upset. Billy Porter did not stand up for his trans co-stars. Watch this.
I don't live in bittersweet. I live in the present. I live in the positive. The fact that we're in the building. The fact that we're in the building is the point. Right? We're in the building. The world has changed. Period. That's where we are. And now we got another season. And now they'll get their shot.
Billy Porter, who won the Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Actor in a Drama Series in 2019, has drawn the ire of his co-star, the trans and non-binary India Moore, who expressed open disappointment when Billy Porter chose to focus on the positive of the show Pose being in the building, rather than acknowledging the fact that his trans co-stars often received much less praise and attention for their performances. It's hard to say what exactly has gone on between them behind the scenes, but the public comment comes off as strongly against him.
Well, it's interesting to me that in the community, we are still focusing on the us and them. We require respect and demand respect outside of our community, but frequently inside our community, we marginalize and divide, and I think that's what's going on here.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of what Al just said, I think it's important, wherever you are on the spectrum of the LGBTQ community, I think it's important that, especially if you are a white, gay male, that you make yourself known to be an ally to the rest of the community that's often overlooked.
I do agree with India in her comment, though. What she's saying is Billy Porter was focused on the fact that he was invited to the table. The show was invited to the table. They got accolade nationally and won an award. But I do agree that oftentimes trans people are completely overlooked and not celebrated. I get what she's saying.
It's an interesting conversation for sure. We queer up business next in reporting Trump gives Microsoft 45 days to clinch TikTok deal. The move to allow Microsoft to get a deal done represents an about-face for Trump and prompted the U.S. tech giant to declare its interest in the blockbuster social media deal that would further inflame U.S. and China relations. Trump said on Friday he was planning to ban TikTok amid concerns that its Chinese ownership represents a national security risk because of the personal data it handles. Many critics have cited Trump being trolled by K-pop fans on the platform as a more likely reason for the sudden ban announcement. Trump changed his mind following pressures from some of his advisors and many in his Republican Party, with them not wanting to alienate young voters.
Next, we queue up entertainment. James Corden tapped to replace Ellen DeGeneres, but viewers are seeking a superior lesbian. Ellen DeGeneres is reportedly close to quitting her show in order to recover her personal brand as her long-running talk show is investigated over allegations the set is dominated by fear. Should Ellen decide to hang up her mic, Corden is reportedly top of NBC's list to replace her. The queer community was quick to note that they would not appreciate their queer icon being replaced with a cisgender, straight, white male, and said that it was really a step backward for the show. One user was quick to put note to the fact that Ellen Page would be a good replacement, and, best of all, they wouldn't even have to rename the show. As of now, there hasn't been much made public about the situation from CBS or others, that there is an investigation that continues to be ongoing.
Next week, we're up the road to Stonewall. Christian white nationalists plan straight pride event in California. Don Grunman, a Christian white nationalist who heads up the National Straight Pride Coalition, says the group will return to Modesto, California to stage a straight pride event. The event will be held outside of a Planned Parenthood to protest genocidal slaughter of the black community. A flyer for the event claims the healthcare organization has killed more black people worldwide than any other group other than the religion of Islam. They will protest there, the flyer says, in defense of all lives. Like last time, there are plans to counter-protest for the event.
Next, we queer up the USA and reporting that Savannah, Georgia approves broad protections for LGBTQ people. Savannah adopted a sweeping ordinance that protects LGBTQ people from discrimination in private employment, housing, and public accommodations, while also mandating improved hate crimes reporting by law enforcement. The added hate crime emphasis goes hand in hand with the training programs now required by the law in order to instruct officers on how to handle situations that may be a hate crime. The ordinance carves out a handful of exceptions, including religiously oriented business that hires employees to perform work related to religious activities, nonprofit private clubs not open to the public, and religious organizations operating non-commercial facilities. Next, let's catch up on all of the news surrounding COVID-19 with our quarantine quickies. The first story tonight is our daily reporting of the coronavirus facts, especially important to the LGBTQ community. First, we report on coronavirus case numbers. Based on standard acceptance of 7% of population of the LGBTQ community, the world's LGBTQ COVID-19 cases now stand at a staggering 1,299,245, while America's LGBTQ COVID-19 cases stand at 341,427. We remind you that America continues to be ground zero of this pandemic. The USA is just 4.4% of the world's population, and today America is 26.2% of the world's cases. Next, we report on coronavirus deaths. The world's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths now stand at 49,013, while America's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths stand at 11,158. The USA is now 27.7% of all of the world's deaths.
Next in Quarantine Quickies, 19,000 more Americans could die from COVID-19 in the next 20 days, CDC composite forecast shows. Watch this.
Reopening and pro sports resuming. ABC's Megan Tabrizian has the overnight developments.
This morning, a new warning about the spread of the virus as the U.S. braces for nearly 30,000 new deaths in the coming weeks.
As you just saw, the relentless death toll of COVID-19 is projected to reach 173,000 by August 22nd, according to a new composite forecast from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That's an average of almost 1,000 U.S. deaths every day for the next 30 days. On Sunday, Dr. Deborah Birx, for the White House coronavirus response coordinator, warned that the United States is in the new phase of the pandemic, noting how rural areas are now spreading the disease around like the big cities were doing back in March. Governors and mayors around the country have been pleading for gatherings to stop, but It is a matter of time to see if these pleas will be falling on deaf ears or not.
This is very scary. I don't know what to say. It's just super scary, and I don't know why people aren't listening. I think they really do think it's fake news, and it's not fake news. People are dying. I know people that have died. I know people that are sick, and it is scary.
Tonight, we're getting ready to do Q's Q&A on coronavirus with Dr. Howard Grossman. It'll be our 21st version, and we're reporting on our 21st week of this, that 30,000 people approximately are going to die in the next, or 20,000 are going to die in the next 20 days.
Wearing a mask is not a political issue. Coronavirus doesn't care if you're a Democrat, if you're a Republican, what you are. Wearing a mask means that you're socially responsible for yourself and all other lives.
Quarantine quickies. Gomert's daughter rips GOP science denial. My dad ignored medical expertise. Now he has COVID-19. Watch this.
In our politics lead today, right now, President Trump is in Texas, which is set to pass New York as the state with the third most coronavirus cases in the country. We know that Republican Congressman Louis Gohmert of Texas was supposed to be on Air Force One traveling with the president today, but Gohmert was tested in preparation for that flight, and he tested positive for the coronavirus. Gohmert has been publicly dismissive about wearing a mask and was seen walking with Attorney General Bill Barr on Capitol Hill yesterday, neither of them wearing a mask during this.
The daughter of Representative Louis Gohmert, Republican from Texas, called out President Donald Trump after her father tested positive for COVID-19. Last week, Gohmert's daughter, Caroline Brooks, posted a statement on Twitter urging people to wear masks after her father's diagnosis. Wearing a mask is a nonpartisan issue. Brooks, who is a musician, posted under her stage name, Belle Saint. The advice of medical experts shouldn't be politicized. My father ignored medical expertise, and now he has COVID-19. She expressed her love for her father and said she is speaking out because she does not want him to die due to Trump's lack of leadership and failure to adhere to scientific policy.
You know, I'm hearing in some social media circles a new phrase. The president calls it the China virus. In some circles, I'm hearing it's the red virus. And the red virus is a reflection that in conservative red Republican states or Republican governors, they're redefining the virus as something that is spreading disproportionately from their red point of views. Interesting.
Yes, also interesting to note that our Republican president initially called this a Democratic hoax. As the Republicans often say in times of gun violence, my thoughts and prayers are with the congressman through this very difficult time for him. But I do have to say that, let's be honest, this is a social responsibility that we all must adhere to. Regardless of Donald Trump's behavior, I think it's very unfair just to cast doubt and blame solely on the president. At the end of the day, regardless if you're a congressman or not, you have to take personal social responsibility for your own health and all others.
Well, Aaron just said it all. I don't really have anything to add, but I will say when Al started talking, I thought he was going to say it was a red virus, like redneck.
Well.
Well, tonight we are broadcasting from our studio set in the middle of the World AIDS Museum and Educational Center. The museum is in Wilton Manors in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
We joke we're coming from the gayest place on planet Earth.
Once again, Anna Nicole visits the set.
Anna, fabulous Anna, Anna.
We'd also like to thank our set designer, Concepto Modern Living, here in Fort Lauderdale for making this set in this living museum possible.
Tonight is part 21 of Q's Q&A on coronavirus and the LGBTQ community, August 4th. This special segment is designed to be unique in America to answer your questions about coronavirus for the LGBTQ community during this pandemic.
Tonight, we have an American pioneer in HIV/AIDS medical treatment. With us is Dr. Howard Grossman, specialist in internal medicine with an emphasis on HIV. He was the executive director of the American Academy of HIV Medicine. He has become nationally recognized as an educator on HIV issues and as an advocate for LGBT civil rights and the rights of our community.
And of course, he has become a medical expert during pandemic for Queer News Tonight. Welcome, Dr. Grossman. And as always, before we get into viewer questions, it's another week, another big week. I've said it 21 weeks in a row from science and the medical community. Before we take any viewer questions, and we're going to broaden it a little tonight out of COVID and some other medical health questions for the LGBT community, I want to ask you, let's start with what's on your mind of what you have seen this week.
Thanks, Al. I should have brought a cake for 21 weeks.
You can drink now.
Yeah, I know. We didn't think we'd be here, did we? And
No.
And by the way, I call it the Trump virus, not the red virus. I think if he's going to call it the China virus and make up a name, then let's put the name of the person who's responsible for the most deaths on it instead. So let's keep calling it the Trump virus.
Okay.
In any case, I mean, the thing, talking about how long this has been that I wanted to talk about to start with today, if you don't mind, is that when I say to people that this is going to be 2 years, without exception, I get, oh my God, really? Do you really think that? So here we are, 8 months into the virus. 7 months, 6 months into our shutdown and the devastation to our economy, and people still think it's going to end by the end of the year. And I blame the media for this. I blame the president and the AIDS task force for this. I think they've created a false hope.
And wishful thinking.
Yes, exactly, Misty. And I think what happens when that happens is that people stop thinking. They stay in place. They don't come up with creative solutions of how we're going to survive this. Now, there was an article yesterday that said 1/3 of the businesses in New York City, the small businesses, may never come back, may go out of business. How can we recover from that? I think we need to be able to think that this is going to be a couple of years, that we're going to have to wear these masks, that we're going to have to figure out ways to connect while being socially distant, and come up with creative solutions. So people really need to be thinking in those long terms, and I think that's very important. And as the mask goes, masks should never have become political. It's such a simple thing to do, but I think that there was so many complicated recommendations, and we've talked about this. I mean, we've talked about this on this show
over and over.
Months that this was going to be a long process. We've talked for months about the mask being the key and about keeping messages simple. And it seems that maybe some of the government is starting to catch up with this. I think we've seen a real failure of leadership, and I know that you have received a lot of things from people on the more conservative, Republican, right-wing people who are very upset that we sit here and talk about the failures of the Trump administration. I think there are failures to be had on both sides of the aisle. But I think that, it's clear. I mean, Andrew Cuomo in New York was trying to cut Medicaid in the middle of the crisis. Nobody's perfect here, but I think it has been such a huge failure of the kind of national leadership that we needed from the beginning, and now we find out that actually there was a testing plan getting ready to go, and it was quashed because it was blue states that were suffering the most. And I think we really need to turn this around where we take care of everybody. It's red states that are suffering the most right now. And, I care, and we live in a red state. We live in a purple state. But, I think it's important that we need to take care of people. I've been hearing from, my boss today published a piece that I copied onto my Facebook page that's just devastating for what's happening 2.5 hours north of here in Port St. Lucie. Just the number of people dying, the people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, that he's holding their hand while they die, and with little kids that they'll never see again. Mother who gave birth will never see her baby because she's dead. These are younger people who are dying, and it's serious.
I'm curious. We have a number of questions from viewers tonight, and And one of the things that we want to start is our actual medical facilities. We haven't focused on that in quite a long time. And Aaron, we have a question about that.
Yes. Our first viewer asks, is it safe to visit emergency rooms right now?
Well, I think one of the biggest problems that we've noticed since the beginning of this whole thing is that people are avoiding medical care. You see people, suddenly the heart attack rate has dropped, other things, because people are just not seeking medical care, and they're getting sick and they're dying at home. So I think it's very important that we make the spaces safe for people to feel that it's safe to obtain medical care. I think the hospitals that I know of are very, very cautious about making sure that they quickly separate people who might have coronavirus symptoms from other people in the emergency room. I do think that most hospitals have protocols in place to make it safe for you to seek that emergency care.
Okay.
Another viewer asks, and this is an amazing question. My partner has COVID-19. Is it possible to keep myself safe and be their caregiver?
Absolutely. I mean, let's start number one. You can be completely exposed to somebody with coronavirus and not get infected. I just saw a patient today whose roommate had COVID back in late April, and they share a small apartment, and my patient did not get it and test negative, and he's 73 years old, so he's no kid. I think that it requires having protective equipment, so it's very important that if you're around an infected person, you be wearing a mask all the time. As we've talked about, the reason you need to wash your hands is because you touch your face with your hands, and if you have a mask on, generally, if it fits, you're going to be touching your face less. So the important thing is to wash your hands when you take that mask off before you start touching your face. I think all of those things can help to keep people from spreading the disease. I think isolating the sick person in a single room in the house is useful, things like that.
We talked about tonight in our news segment that meth is almost one of our top concerns in the LGBT community. And a viewer actually prompted us on a question about this that Aaron's going to ask.
Yes, a viewer asks, how does someone get over a meth addiction?
There are lots of people who've recovered and are in recovery from meth addiction. So yes, the answer is yes, you can get over it, but it is a very difficult process. Methamphetamine that exists now is different. Methamphetamine has existed since the 19-teens, invented by the Germans, used by the Germans and the Americans through World War II. It's gone through, there have been multiple epidemics of methamphetamine over the last 100 years. But the methamphetamine that exists now is the most highly addictive form that has ever existed, and that's ever since the late 90s. This is an insidious drug that gets under every barrier people seek to put up, and the addiction is horrible. It destroys people's lives. So it's very important to get in touch with, if you want to be in recovery, to get in touch with a detox center where you can be in a supportive environment to get off the drug. And then you need to follow through with whatever form of recovery works for you. Now, some people will go to Crystal Meth Anonymous. Some people don't like the atmosphere there and prefer to go to more traditional Alcoholics Anonymous. But getting involved in some kind of recovery program is really important. Now, lots of people feel that, well, I can do this on my own. And, I have many friends and relatives who are in recovery, and I've gone with them to AA meetings, for example, just to see what it was like. And I really felt that the important thing was just being in the room. You don't have to share your story. You don't have to talk about yourself. But being in the room with other people who have suffered from addiction and hearing their stories is a very important process, part of recovery. So, yeah, I think it can be done, but it's really, really difficult.
Yeah, thank you. Another viewer asks, how dangerous is it when Donald Trump attacks Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx in relation to COVID-19?
Well, dangerous. I mean, this is typical, Donald Trump behavior. He demands complete loyalty, but he never gives it back. So,
well said.
I mean, Tony Fauci has tried to walk a fine line to try to get us good information while not coming up in the president's face, and he has said this multiple times. But the minute that you say anything that's different than the president says, you've coming up in his face. So I think that the concerted effort, not just by President Trump, but by his staff and his enablers, to cut down Tony Fauci and to put out all kinds of disinformation about him, that is destructive because it makes people not trust. And, he is the purveyor of fake news more than anybody else. If you see that Axios interview he just did the other day,
amazing,
released yesterday, it's mind-blowing, right?
It's mind-blowing.
All the facts are wrong. He just makes things up. Now, Deborah Birx is another story. She was very well respected in HIV and ran the PEPFAR program under the Bush administration. She was very well respected, but she's lost that respect. There's an article in the Washington Post today talking about how she's lost the respect of the scientific and AIDS community because she has said the most outrageous things to defend the president. And it turns out that it was probably her who was talking about models that were showing this thing slowing and slowly going away which fed the president's obsession that somehow this is all going away. So now he's turned on her. And why did he turn on her? Because she happened to say that we were in trouble. Now, this whole thing about the fact that this is a new wave that was spreading to rural areas, when did we talk about Alabama? How many weeks and weeks ago was it that we talked about the situation in Alabama where the hospitals in Montgomery were already full and they were sending people to Birmingham, and we talked about how rural hospitals don't have the infrastructure, how they don't have the ICUs, how they were sending their sickest patients. I mean, that was months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So this, to us, here we are out in the community, was completely predictable. How is it that it got missed everywhere else?
One of the conversations about our social isolation through the first 8 months into our 8th month of 2020 is weight gain. And we had a viewer ask a question about that. Aaron?
Yes, a viewer asks, I've gained far too much weight. What's the safest way to lose a few pounds?
And this was a secret way for Aaron to get this question in for himself.
It was. Some people call it COVID-19. I call it the COVID-40.
Yeah.
Well, having suffered from the same problem as everybody else, and I've gained weight too, I can say that for myself, I'm a big fan of Weight Watchers. That just happens to be a program that works for me. But I think there are some simple things that I would say. Number one, clean out all the junk from your house. You were stuck in the house a lot. This isn't the time. If you're a binge eater under stress, this isn't the time to deal with your binge eating problem. But binge eat on the right things. If you eat 6 apples, you're going to be full. You're going to be very full. But it's very different than if you've eaten 6 donuts. And so, make sure your house is filled with good
Head
food.
turns toward Aaron.
I am not even kidding you. I finished off 6 donuts in the last 2 days. So
well, there you go.
So, today we got donuts at the office, and I actually managed to get through the whole day without eating one.
Where's your office?
Right.
Right down the block.
Right.
Perfect.
Exactly.
But I think that's very important. Fill your house with good food. How many times have you, when you're bored and you're stuck at home, do you open that refrigerator door knowing there's nothing in there?
Yes.
And you go and look anyway.
Yeah.
So fill your house with good food. Go ahead and binge eat if that's the way you're going to deal with this stress, but eat the right stuff.
Yeah.
Second thing I would say is take time to prepare good meals. And taste your food. And I think for many of us who have had weight problems over the years, we stop tasting our food. We shovel food down. We eat it so fast that we don't.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Because it's the enemy. So put your fork down between bites and chew your food and taste it for once. Don't just sit in front of the TV and shovel it in. That's very important for healthy eating. Try not to eat anything that comes out of a box. Okay, don't eat processed food.
Well, that's almost strike 3 for Aaron.
I'm out.
And if you say anything about drive-thrus or pizza delivery,
It's over. It's over.
There are healthy ways to eat pizza. That's one thing I learned from doing Weight Watchers, that I could have 2 slices.
Is this an intervention? What is this? What is this?
Right.
Yeah, but have those 2 slices and enjoy them and really enjoy them.
You can't have 2 slices. You have a whole box.
And then put the rest away.
I understand that.
That's why I liked it in New York, where I could just get a slice.
Dr. Grossman, we want to finish tonight on a question. This is our last question, but it's not COVID related, but it really continues along with what we've discussed tonight with meth. Of course, COVID is also one of the #1 health issues in our community.
You know a thing or two about this question, Dr. Grossman. The viewer asks, what is the latest status on AIDS as far as vaccine, cure status, and new preventative measures?
Okay, so we're talking about, first of all, the status of HIV as far as the effect of the virus. So right now, we're still at the place where we have found that people living with HIV are at no greater risk for getting the virus because of the HIV, especially people on medications. Now, we don't know why that is, but that's the case. We've speculated here nobody knows about the effect of medications, although we do, so far, HIV medications have not been effective against the coronavirus. Is it that people with HIV are not mounting the immune response, that second phase of infection that is often so destructive and lethal for people? Nobody knows why, but people with HIV do not need to be at excess worry. Of course, many of the people that we know with HIV in our neighborhood are over 60, 70, 80, have multiple other health problems. Let's remember, obesity, hypertension, diabetes, these are the 3 things that are most predictive of bad outcomes with COVID-19. So it's incumbent on us to try to get all of that under control, all of us. But people with HIV, that's where they're getting hit. As far as vaccines go, we actually had some good news yesterday because a bunch of the vaccine trials works explicitly excluding people with HIV. And thanks to AIDS Action Baltimore and Linda D there and a bunch of people who picked up the ball and ran with it, a huge petition circulated around the country. And Moderna, which has the big vaccine trial that's been discussed, has now agreed to rewrite it to allow people living with HIV who are stable on their medications to participate. And multiple other trials are now under the gun to do the same thing. But that one was going through the AIDS vaccine network or through the vaccine network at the NIH, and so that was a little easier to do. But pressure needs to be put on pharma companies to allow people living with HIV to participate. As far as another thing with vaccines, the question is, how fast this is going to happen and whether people will join and whether they will take the vaccine. I just did an informal poll with a bunch of friends of mine that I do Zoom cocktails with every Monday, friends from college. And really, pretty much all of them said that they would volunteer for a vaccine trial and that if one is approved, they will take it. I was a little surprised that there was that definite. I'm still a little skeptical about how fast this is all happening. Cure status, is that for HIV? Cure? There's so much research going on that's so exciting, but I think we are far from a cure. Treatments are fortunately so effective and tolerated that, but there's still, a huge impetus to develop a cure. The science is mind-boggling.
I'm curious, has for HIV, it's certainly happened in general for all kinds of medical conditions, even cancer. Has COVID just knocked everything off the table in terms of our attention? It seems like
in terms of our attention, yeah. In terms of what's going on in the scientific community, no. I mean, my niece is working on tuberculosis at New York Hospital, and she said her lab. I said to her, "Why aren't you turning your PCR machines into ones that measure COVID?" And she goes, "Because we're working on tuberculosis." And in fact, there were articles today talking about the explosion of tuberculosis around the world and so many people not being able to get to treatment and not being able to continue their treatment. So, that's all these things are very important. We can't lose sight of them.
Well, I had dinner with Dr. Grossman Friday night. We had a very enjoyable time. We went to Chef Josie's restaurant, and that was enjoyable. Are we going to have another date next Tuesday at 7 o'clock here? I suspect we're going to. Absolutely. And that is because it will be part 22 of Q's Q&A of coronavirus. And very disappointing to me in Dr. Grossman's warning is we may be doing part 71 of Q's Q&A coronavirus in the future, because it looks like this is going to be a situation that sticks with us for a while. So LGBTQ community, pay attention to the news. Accurate information is critical. And don't forget, we always say this, Dr. Grossman coined it, we modified it, wear your fucking mask. We say it now every single week.
If I could add one little thing, you notice on this mask there's a little metal bar that lets me make a tight seal over my nose. A lot of masks are being sold that do not have any way to make a tight seal. One thing I would suggest, a quick and dirty solution, is take a paper clip and glue it onto the mask, and then you'll be able to make a tighter seal.
Yes.
For those of you like me who wear glasses, it'll help your glasses to not fog up as much. The other thing you can do, of course, is rub shaving cream on your glasses and wipe them off. That works to keep them from fogging.
And I always try to point out that Dr. Grossman is a member of our community, and he's just proven that by talking about the need for a tight seal. So that is important medical advice from our medical expert, Dr. Howard Grossman from Midway Specialty Care Center, right here in Walton Manors. As always, thank you, Dr. Grossman, for being with us tonight. It's so beneficial. We end tonight's broadcast with The Big Finish, and these are short story mentions of LGBTQ news and news with a gay perspective. So here we go, first on Queer News Tonight's The Big Finish. Happy birthday to the real President of the United States of America, Barack Obama.
America, we did it once before, we can do it again. Let's elect a Democrat and let's get back to normal.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Happy birthday to you.
Can you just imagine how amazing Barack Obama would look in a mask? Just the style he would choose. I miss you, Obama. Wear a fake mustache and run for office as your cool older brother, Barry. The Big Finish. Scream 5, have you heard? Courtney Cox confirms she is going to return as reporter Gail Weathers.
Well, as Al's high school yearbook quote once said, I scream, you scream, we all scream for Cox.
Yes! I was obsessed with Nev Campbell, and I will admit I had every version of Scream on VHS.
You know, Aaron reminds me.
Uh-oh.
Anything that has to do with Cox, I'm in. The Big Finish.
Or it's in.
The Los Angeles Police Department has arrested a teenage protester, and he was dangling a donut on a string outside the mayor's home.
Okay.
Not kidding.
I don't get it.
Can this protester please come to Fort Lauderdale? I'll give you my address.
Girl.
Come to me.
A donut. I'm confused. Are they trying to get the mayor out or get the police in? I don't get it.
First Rodney King in Los Angeles. Now this. They're just mad because he didn't give them any of the donuts directly. The Big Finish. The Trump organization puts Apprentice Chopper that was in the opening scene on the block.
I have no clue what that means other than, my God, please, just get rid of him. Just vote for Joe Biden.
He has a helicopter. They're selling it. He's got to pay for some legal
he's got to
fees.
pay his legal bills
Yes.
when he goes to prison.
Yeah.
Of course he's selling it, though. It's not good enough for him now. He needs bulletproof everything.
Yeah. Sorry, Donald. Even after this expensive hunk of junk sells, you still won't be a billionaire. The big finish. Did you hear? A tourist was crushed. They lived. But a tourist was crushed by a humpback whale in Australia.
Well, first off, who wrote this and how insensitive? I have never been to Australia. How dare you?
I think this is the perfect example of not knowing one's strength. Meaning, I'm sure the whale was playing around with their human snorkelers and didn't realize the damage they could cause. For 16 years, there's never been an issue. They've snorkeled with the whales for 16 years. I honestly think this was a mistake, and we should forgive the whale.
You know what the issue is? First, the land was set ablaze this year by wildfires.
True.
Now the sea creatures are attacking people. And we're reporting it. What is going on down under? I guess it really is true, because we've had 4 or 5 of these kind of weird stories in the last couple of weeks. So I really think that Australia really is the Florida of the world.
Misty says, forgive the whale. I say, never, ever listen to Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Ever.
The big finish. Men rescued from a deserted island after writing SOS in the sand.
And just so you guys know, that man who was rescued from the island was me. When I said SOS, it stood for Secretary of State.
This is life imitating the movies. I love it. And I think I could just imagine these people flying in the little plane, looking down and saying, oh, wouldn't you love to own that island? Oh, Jesus, look, there's an SOS.
Do you think I could use this same concept to escape the United States under Donald Trump? There are lots of beaches around here. I live in South Florida, after all, and I could find a stick real fast if it helped me work this out.
Oh, Jesus.
Such a beach.
Life.
Right? See, you got the joke. We end tonight with a photo essay, and this is interesting, kind of unique. Never let it be said that we are not diverse here at Queer News Tonight. One of our staff in production got caught looking at inappropriate Harry Potter pictures, and in the spirit of the big finish, we decided to make a lighthearted list of the top 8 kinkiest Harry Potter characters. Now remember, LGBTQ America, no kink shaming is allowed here. Watch this.
Queer News Tonight presents the top 8 kinkiest Harry Potter characters. Bill Weasley, who knows what he has to do to satisfy his Veela wife. Lucius Malfoy, textbook sadist if there ever was one. Dolores Umbridge, she clearly loves inflicting pain on younger men. Mad-Eye Moody, his magic eye makes him the perfect pervert. Horace Slughorn, the ultimate trophy collector. How many notches does this guy's bedpost have? Bellatrix Lestrange. Whips and chains for sure excite this wicked witch. Hermione Granger. She has read all of the books. All of them. Use your imagination. Nymphadora Tonks. She can transform her body into anything, and we bet she takes full advantage of that.